Good evening and welcome. My name is Taylor Kingman, President of the Board of Trustees for San Angelo ISD. I would like to welcome all of you who are present at tonight's Preagenda board meeting, as well as those of you who will be watching the recording online or on our public access channel. Today's date is March 9th. All items on tonight's agenda have been posted as required by state law, and most items will be discussed tonight and voted upon at our regular board meeting. As our board, our work includes setting goals, hearing reports from our superintendent, approving budgets, contracts, and personnel items, and making policy decisions for the district. Please keep in mind that it is a meeting of the board held in public, not a meeting of the public. These proceedings are recorded and will become part of the district's permanent record. To help us maintain a clear recording, please refrain from speaking while others have the floor, and please silence your cell phone. Thank you again for being here and for your support of SASD. We do have a quorum, and we'll begin with our first item this evening, which are our pledges. If you all will please stand. Next on our agenda is public comments. We do have individuals signed up to speak this evening. For those of you speaking tonight, please remember to follow the guidelines you received when you signed in and were displayed on the screen before the meeting began. Our first speaker is Dr. Aaron Ashworth King, and it is on library holdings and book challenges.
Sorry, I'm short. Okay. Thank you to the members of the school board for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Aaron Ashworth King, and I am a professor of literature at ASU. But I come to you not in that capacity, but as the capacity of a parent of 2 daughters in SAISD schools. I love books, and I have instilled in my daughters a love of books. While I disagree in principle with the censorship of any kind, I am most strongly opposed to any blanket ban or challenge of texts that removes stories, poetry, and information from school libraries and from the access of my children. Blanket bans and challenges infringe upon my daughter's rights and freedom to read, but they also infringe upon my right and freedom to decide what is and is not appropriate for them. Parents can already restrict materials they deem objectionable for their own children. Such parental control is fair and in keeping with SAISD policy and Senate Bill 13. Any removal of text for all students is privileging one parent's right over that of the others and violates not only the spirit of the law, but SAISD policy that promotes the freedom to read. To my knowledge, an unprecedented number of texts are being challenged and risk removal from our school libraries. This is on top of the unprecedented numbers from last year, which saw over 6,000 titles challenged and banned nationwide, according to PEN America, a well-respected nonprofit dedicated to keeping fiction, poetry, art, and nonfiction available for students. Some of the titles deemed objectionable in these bans are books on such subjects as Pokemon and Michelangelo, popular novels, poetry, book series like Percy Jackson's, which is one of my daughter's favorites. She's in 7th grade. Hi, Phoebe. My daughters are both voracious readers. I curate what they read. I trust librarians, educated and certified, to aid me in this task. Let them do their job without interference. Let me do my job as a parent without interference. Protect the freedom to read. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Ashworth King. Next, we have Aaron McKillop. I said that right, I hope. I apologize if I didn't. And this is also on challenged books and library holdings.
Hi, my name is Erin McKillop. I have a master's in English literature, and I teach English 3, dual credit AP, and English 4 at Central High School. I also have a child who attends Lone Star Middle School. Some famous banned books we read at the high school level include Animal Farm, which explores the idea of complacency when faced with a power structure that thrives off of injustice and inequality. 1984, which explores a system of power that controls the populace through mass surveillance, censored media and controlled information, and the unchecked and inaccurate rewriting of history. Fahrenheit 451, which explores the removal of books, the very means in which the ideas supported by freedom allows us to exist in a country that values life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And Brave New World, which explores the aftermath of the total collapse of civilization and the rebuilding of society by those who would turn morality and our understanding of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness on its head to bring awareness to potential social issues that, if not realized, could lead to unchecked hedonism. Books provide ideas through storytelling and promote critical thinking, a necessary skill that cannot be developed when there is only one correct answer, but a number of answers, outcomes, and potential ramifications. Books provide insight to people, places, and cultures outside our own to allow us to imagine the world through the eyes of others. Over the last 3 years, our political climate has worked in many ways to demoralize and demonize the very educators our community relies on to prepare our youth for both university and the workforce. Removing books, limiting the readings to only pieces of books, and creating an environment where educators are hesitant to fully engage those books result in our students' stunted ability to explore humanity's issues of the past, present, and possible future with clarity and deep understanding. We are seemingly up against a wall with society's willingness to turn their thinking capabilities over to AI. And by removing the very text that would encourage original thought and subsequent problem-solving skills, we are capitulating to an Epsilonian or base existence. As educators, we rage against the machines, both mechanical and human, that encourage society to sacrifice their capacity to learn, and banning stories that provide human perspectives outside our own experiences and worldviews stunt our capacity to develop empathy and understanding and the necessary critical thinking skills needed for our students to succeed in the future. As a lover of books and someone who finds value in all stories, because I find value in all human experiences, I ask that you consider what we lose if we remove these experiences from the hands of our future-ready learners.
Thank you, Ms. McKillop.
Thank you.
Next, we have Hunter Glass, and he's also on library holdings and challenged books.
Sorry, I'm kind of tall. Good evening, everyone. My name is Hunter Glass, and I graduated last year after 12 years with SAISD. I now go to Angelo State University. I want to start by saying that without my English classes, I would not be the person I am today. I have many people to thank for that, from my teachers to my parents. My mom's a pretty avid reader. When I was younger, I was a pretty troublesome guy, I'm be honest. I saw racism as just another thing. Not because of how I was raised, but because it was so normalized among my peers. I believe that if someone didn't think the same way I did, they were against me, and they were wrong. But books changed that. On the first day of English class my junior year, my teacher told us that she teaches so that those who walk through her door leave as better human beings. I didn't fully understand what she meant at the time, but looking back now, I realized she was right. Reading books forced me to question things I had never questioned before. For example, I didn't think much about casual racism until I read To Kill a Mockingbird. If that book had been banned, I might still be the same ignorant kid I used to be. That book made me stop and reflect on things I had once ignored. It helped me see people differently, and it helped me grow. That's exactly why books like this matter. Controversial books make people think. They challenge us. They push us to question ideas we might otherwise accept without thinking. So why would we want to remove the very books that help young people grow into thoughtful adults? Some people want to ban books because they contain moments they consider indecent, but they ignore the deeper meaning behind them. Take Brave New World, for example. Books like that were written for us to reflect on the world around us. America itself was built on controversial ideas. When this country was founded, the British government feared that letting people think for themselves would weaken their control. So I ask you, are we really any different when we start restricting what our students are allowed to read? Is it so wrong to let teenagers encounter ideas that challenge them? I've been a Christian all my life, and I can say honestly that the Bible contains some of the most difficult and uncomfortable stories. Yet the 10 Commandments are displayed in classrooms across Texas. So why should we remove other books simply because they challenge our views? Books don't exist to make us comfortable. They exist to allow us to witness other perspectives, to make us think. And if we remove the books that challenge students, we risk raising a generation that is less thoughtful, less understanding, and less prepared to lead. I want to leave you with this. Jesus himself was considered controversial at the time. The Pharisees opposed him because of his teachings and challenged his beliefs of the day. His ideas were seen as dangerous simply because they made people question the current teachings. So the question we should ask ourselves is, are we willing to silence the ideas simply because they challenge our own? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. Next, we have Ms. Karen Best, and she is also on books.
I'm not that tall. Thank you. It's hard to follow all of that, and so part of what I had to say is already said. But in thinking about what this young man just said, I will add something that, is, I think, in addition to the challenge that you present, it's that in my line of work, I have the privilege of working with children within the district who leave school and then attend the courthouses across the street from my office. And in those courthouses, the reasons they're there are some of the most heinous and uncomfortable that you can imagine. They are sexually trafficked by their parents or their grandparents. They are abused. They are addicted to drugs from the point at which they are held by parents who are using methamphetamine, and the crystallization of meth never breaks down like other drugs. It just recrystallizes and absorbs into their skin or their toys or their bottle or whatever it is they're having, right? And they're your students. And some of the content that is objected to in these books is the very content that validates them as people. It's their experience. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's their life. Or they read about someone else like them when so much of the society around them tells them to be quiet, to stay hidden, to not say what's happening to them. The consequences for an outcry are real, right? We see that. We see them sometimes tried in media, children tried in media here in San Angelo, being cross-examined by press that doesn't mind making a buck on advertising based upon their story. Y'all have seen that. So when we talk about these books and when we talk about what they tell, many of them that are on the banned book lists, and I'm just wondering what's in that pile of paper right there, but many of them that are on the banned book lists validate children of color, validate children and their stories in poverty, validate young women in crisis, validate those of us, not us, those children who are trafficked, those who are alone, those who are gay, those who are trans, those who are different, and those who, by extension, are more statistically likely to commit suicide, to suffer from severe depression, and who, believe it or not, in the context of the court cases that I have, when they ask for anything other than representation from their attorney, is for a book.
Thank you, Mrs. Best. Next, we have Mr. Daniel Cardenas, and it's on boundary lines.
I don't have anything written, so I usually don't. You know, I had a problem in our boundary committee meeting last week, and the first words that was asked from us was, "What do you expect of this committee?" And I got up and I said, "Fair and justice." Then we had Mr. Morrell make a presentation of how many of you have lived in San Angelo for the past 5 years. So many. For the next 10 years, so many. For the next 15 years, so many. The majority of that committee have not been here 71 years, as I have. So I have the most experience in this community in situations like this because I've served on council before, and I felt bothered that the committees consist of predominantly administration appointed by the superintendent. To me, that's very unfair. It's if I had been picked to pick the committee and I picked all Hispanics and a few Anglo-Saxon parents from the east part of town, and we're going to make the decision on boundary lines. I feel very bothered, and I know that San Angelo feels very bothered, by this. How can you look at us in the eye and the community and say we're being fair and justice will be served? Because I'm here as a president, I'm here as a superintendent, and I'm here as a board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Next, we're going to move on with our agenda items. First is some reports, and Ms. Becerra is going to come up and talk to us about summary of findings of the TA intruder detection audit conducted by ESC.
Dr. Moran, Dr. Kingman, and members of the board, thank you for your time this evening. In the month of February and the first week of March, we have had 5 intruder detection audits. Any findings and corrective actions needed, if any, have been addressed by our campus administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra. Next, Dr. Brandon's going to give us an update on student membership.
Good evening, Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, Board of Trustees. We're going to go through just, every year we track student membership month to month, and the board receives that data. In particular, this year, TEA, for whatever reason, during the fall semester, did not update many of the tax rates and property values in the summary of finance. And then finally, that came to fruition in January. The comptroller's office, the state comptroller, updated property values by the January 31st. And in turn, then TEA updated the summary of finance in February. So now that we have all of those numbers updated and correct in the comptroller's office and in the summary of finance, I wanted to share with you our projections, student membership, how that affects school finance, and then what we're doing to work through that for the remainder of the school year. Very familiar chart that you see month to month. From the first day of school till the last day of school, we track student attendance, student membership. You can see certainly a slow start and then a peak at 12,498 students, and then a gradual fall that we've seen over the last several years, 1.2, 1.5%. But then we hit the Christmas break. It came back, and in red you see January, and then the fall that we've had since then at a higher rate of decline. When we go back and compare that to our student enrollment, since the point that the district had 15,000 students and tracked that back year over year, And then we see now the prediction being, as we finish the school year at the end of May, at 12,170. What's interesting is that we began to see that slow at a negative 1.2, a little increase, negative 1.9%, and then what was unanticipated certainly is more than double of that for this school year at negative 4.6% decline in student enrollment. So the question being, where are the students going, right? So we checked the PEIMS data. You'll see that 80, the code right in the middle of the screen, a code of 80 is a mover, another Texas public school district. 45% are movers, 18% homeschool, code 60, that third column. You see we have 12% moved out of state, code 82. We have students that have graduated. There, 55 students, 3%. And then the 98 code other, where we did not receive a signature maybe from the parent or were not told exactly where the children were going. So that gives you at least an idea. What's interesting is when you see 1,670 students. So when we are down by just over 500, then you can tell that 1,100 students have come and gone through the district since the start of school. So as we look forward, we know probably a lot of those that are in the 98 other category are probably also homeschool. So that at least gives you an idea, right, of where the students have gone so far this school year. So to add to our situation with the declining enrollment, we always receive the property values from the chief appraiser by July 25th every year, and then we go into creating the budget and then the board adopting the budget in August. You can see that our property values certified were $6.9 billion right at the bottom of the screen. And so that would be the tax base for this school year at 6.9. In November, the homestead exemption was passed by voters, which increased homestead exemption to $140,000, $200,000, 65 and older. But it also approved the freeze of property values. You can see in yellow when this was done December 15th, a freeze, a taxable loss of $500 million in that taxable freeze. So once we have our total taxable minus the freeze, you see that our values dropped to $6.6 billion. So a loss of $300 million in the interim from August to December 15th. So what does that really mean to the budget impact overall? As we look at our general fund revenue, the column on the left, August 2025, at the $6.9 billion, at 140K exemption, and then you look at the property taxes. So that $300 million drop in property taxes was a $2.1 million loss to the school district. And then if you look under the foundation school program, the white block is state aid. The blue is local taxes. The white is state aid. Once you reduce for the number of students that we're collecting for, you see a loss of $4.5 million. The red line in particular is the hold harmless, the freeze. The state does have hold harmless just like our bond repayment when the property values drop because of homestead exemption or tax freeze. You see that it was 1.1 in August, 1.1 million, and then most recently at 400,000. So you see that loss figured into it as well. Some encouraging news, we received an email from the Texas Education Agency today that actually said that they felt like the comptroller, there may be some miscalculation in the freeze. and is going back through all of those freeze calculations across the state. And my hope being that we see a number closer to the 1.1 than what we saw January 31st. So what does that really mean what's our budget impact? We're talking about revenue, but we really haven't talked about expenditures yet. I wanted the board to see what the actual fund balance has looked like over the last several years. You can see in fiscal year 19 and 20, the district kept a fund balance around 37 million. And then COVID, and then ESSER, right? We began to receive the ESSER funding, an influx into school districts. And I can still remember the very first Commissioner of Education meeting when he said, if you're smart, you will supplant every dollar that you can, because there will come a day you're going to need it. And I never will forget that very first meeting across the state. You can see the ESSER funds in 21, just over 2 million, and 22, 9 million, 23, 9 million, and then 24, 5 million. You see that the fund balance grew to 74 million at that point. The Board of Trustees did an excellent job of hanging on to those ESSER funds when it was needed. Some much needed work at a couple of campuses for right sizing, cafeteria size increases, addition of classrooms. All of that was taken from the local budget to make those campuses ready for the right sizing and the addition of additional students. You can see now our fiscal year 25 audit at 55 million, and then the projection by the end of fiscal year 26 around 52 million. This is kind of what it would look like in a bar chart. Still much higher than where we were in the fiscal year 19 and 20, but definitely something that we want to keep an eye on year over year. So when we see a drop in student enrollment, to be fiscally responsible, we also need to see a staffing drop in the same increment. So you've seen the district over the last 3 years reduce staffing at that same 1.5, 1.9, and now we're looking at that 4.5% drop. It usually takes 1 year. You can't do it in the same year that you see a big drop like that, but we make the adjustments the year after that. So you can see over the next 2 years a reduction of approximately 50 positions at the end of this school year, and then 60 a year out, those through attrition and retirement, not by letting anyone go. So what does that really mean to the budget impact? We've been talking about campus closure. You can see what our estimates have been after the closure of Altaloma and Austin. The right sizing that the board did in using fund balance to right size the new elementaries and allow for students to be on that campus, and then the savings, $900,000 per year for the closure of one elementary campus, and that's from now on, right? Those are costs that were on the district that the board saw fit to make that happen, and I know that recently there was a decision to close 2 more. So that $2 million also will begin to return into the maintenance and operations for the district and help offset the deficit as we see a continued declining enrollment. Any questions?
One question on your fiscal year 26 fund balance. One more back. That one. Does that include purchases that have already been allocated out of fund balance this year? That projected number?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it is different. I think it's probably a good place to point out the 6.9 is a reduction in general revenue. By the same token, we also want to reduce our general expenditures. So that's not a number that's a hard number by the end of the year. If we are able to save approximately 2% of the budget, if we get some help from the state and the hold harmless, our goal being to cut that number in half by the end of the year. That's why you only see a 3.5 million reduction from fiscal year 25 to 26. Our goal being to cut that in half of what the revenue loss would be.
So that projected would include the shortfall this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just sure. Any other questions for Dr. Brandon? Sorry. All right. Thank you, Dr. Brandon. Dr. Gomez, we're going to have a report on state and federal grants.
Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and members of the board, this evening's report on state and federal grants is just to highlight the many ways the district seeks to find additional funding. That was a great segue there, Dr. Brandon. San Angelo ISD operates under a comprehensive framework to ensure all federal and state grant funds are administered with strong fiscal stewardship, programmatic integrity, and compliance with federal and state regulations. The district maintains a robust financial management system to track all federal awards, including authorizations, obligations, expenditures, and required reporting. Grant planning integrates campus and district needs assessments. So from the CNA, again, in education, we have a lot of acronyms. That's the Comprehensive Needs Assessment. The DIP, or the District Improvement Plan, and the SIPs, the Campus Improvement Plans. Alignment to the board-adopted superintendent goals, House Bill 3 goals, and supplement, not supplant requirements. All applications and amendments are reviewed by Finance, Human Resources, Curriculum and Instruction, and Grant Management prior to superintendent certification. All purchasing follows procurement standards, and time and effort documentation ensures payroll costs reflect actual work performed on the grant. And any equipment purchased with federal funds is tagged, inventoried, and tracked per federal property rules. To give you all an overview of the district's federal grant awards for this school year, I'll go through and list our current grants. In Title I, Part A, there's $3,702,553. This supports supplemental instruction for economically disadvantaged students. Title II, Part A, $569,546. This funds professional learning and educator effectiveness. Title III, Part A, for English learners, $79,139, and enhances instruction for emergent bilingual students. Title III, Immigrant, supports immigrant student integration and academic success. Title IV, Part A, $277,525, provides well-rounded education, safe, healthy schools, and technology integration. The Carl D. Perkins CTE, $169,450. It expands and supports career and technical education programs. IDA B for formula. So it funds special education, instructional, and related services. Just want to clarify, it does not cover all the funds. So that's one area where we get a little bit, but it definitely does not cover everything. IDA B preschool or early childhood allotment, $100,348. It supports early childhood and special education programs. And then some additional state grants this year for the 25-26 school year. The district has received the LASSO 3 for Texas Instructional Leadership for $87,000. Just recently, the district has received LASSO 4. This is a little different. The grant start date is March 1st, 2026 through August 31st, 2027. This is for K-5 RLA, K-5 math, and secondary math. in the awarded amount of $718,000, with an additional school improvement professional learning community add-on in the amount of $720,000. Additionally, we have the Effective Advisory Framework. There's another acronym. It's referred to as the EAF grant. It's in the award amount of $100,000. This supports districts in designing and implementing a strong individual student planning system within a comprehensive counseling program. Then we have Stronger Connections. This was over 2 years. Again, these all kind of are done a little differently, but this was for the 24-25 and ends this 25-26 school year. This federal grant program was created to help students improve student safety, mental health, and school climate in the awarded amount of $1,235,976. So that's just kind of an overview of the current status. It was not every single grant the district works with. It's also important to note that the grant responsibilities fall on staff who most regularly work within that program. You all have met Mrs. Raquel Taunton, our Director of State and Federal Programs. She oversees all of the title. I do work with her directly on the Title II for professional learning. And then, for example, the EAF Stronger Connections, that's Mrs. Rebecca Klein, our Director of Counselors and Mental Health. And then CTE, y'all know Mrs. Roxanne Fentress. So we don't have staff just specific to the grants. It's on our regular job responsibilities within our areas assigned in the district. If you have any additional questions, I'm happy to answer tonight or bring them to the Thursday meeting.
That was very good. Can you send us that in Friday Facts?
I sure can.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I thought y'all were tired of my very lengthy Friday Facts.
I love your lengthy Friday Facts. Just a comment on the IDEA funding. I've been kind of following that. And whenever I've had the opportunity to go to Washington to speak to our legislators about IDEA funding, just so the public knows, IDEA funding, which is for special ed, passed in our Congress in 1975, and at that time, the promise was that federal would pay half and local school districts would pay half. And as of this year, the federal is not even paying half of their half. And every year that I've gone and I've asked for, for our legislators to consider funding IDEA because it's so important, and the number of kids with special needs has grown, over the past decades. What I'm told is that it's not because it's not a bipartisan bill, that they won't sign on it. And so we keep on pushing. And so if you're looking for something to speak to a legislator about, a federal legislator about, that would be it.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Gomez?
Yes. Has the district ever considered having like a dedicated grant writer?
With our current staffing situation and the budget, not most recently, as we're having to make very hard staffing decisions. I spent the greatest amount of my career as an administrator as a campus principal. You will never have a campus principal say, please take staff away. The greatest income are those individuals working directly with students. So I know the information that Dr. Brandon just had to present, that's the really hard information. So those reductions don't just come from the campus level, they come throughout the entire district. So that's why we assume those responsibilities in our daily support of the work we do in the district.
I just have to say something, I'm sorry. Just because I think I've been asking the same question for a long time, Ms. Cardenas, and I think I would really like the district to look at the possibility of getting a grant writer. A good grant writer will make their salary multiple times a year, every single year, and you can write a portion of the grant to cover the salary of the grant writer. So I really very strongly agree with you and feel like that should be something we look into.
I definitely understand both of you and what you're sharing. I think what we need to, whatever decision the board makes, it's really hard when you are the boots on the ground on the campus, understanding that. It's seen as we've added more at the district level instead of the campus, where they're opening car doors, where they're working with students that need extreme behavior supports, where they're working with that student who's striving and has gaps to close. It doesn't come across. They don't hear, well, the salary's covered from the grants. There are positives that come with grants, and there are negatives as well. All of these grants require multiple hours in our schedules and required compliance and deliverables. So just receiving the money alone isn't always just a great benefit. Please know we are looking for all ways to find money. It's just we have to weigh pros and cons. But just want to give a shout out from the campus level staff. Again, I've spent a lot of time there, and y'all know my pre-K stories this year. So the work our teachers and our campus staff do is a heavy lift each and every day.
And we do appreciate what the administration over these programs have done over the last year and multiple years. I mean, later tonight we'll see how much money Ms. Doyle's gotten for us in grants with, it's going to be voted on in the next meeting, but as far as E-rate and the things that people are doing in our district, so taking those extra things on when we are staffing, appreciate everyone's work doing that as well. So, all right, thank you, Dr. Gomez. Next, we're going to talk about factors considered for campus closure, and Dr. Moran's going to start us off on that.
All right, Dr. Kingman and the board, at the request of the board, I'm revisiting the factors considered for campus closure. If you'll recall, in January, the board considered closing 2 elementary school campuses within San Angelo ISD in response to declining enrollment. The closures of Bowie and Reagan were approved by the Board of Trustees effective fall of 2027. The district closed Altaloma and Austin elementary schools at the end of the 23-24 school year, and San Jacinto in late July of 24, after being condemned by engineers and the city of San Angelo due to structural failures of the 117-year-old building. In October of 2022, the district considered elementary school closures, and the board will recall recommendations from engineers and architects at that time, identifying 5 of the elementary schools that I've just mentioned as the campuses that should be closed, laying out a timeline to do so. And I think you've seen that graphic in prior presentations. In the summer of 2024, a full facility evaluation of all San Angelo ISD campuses was performed. The board heard updates on demographics, facility study summaries, projections on school funding as a result of declining enrollment, staffing challenges, and academic updates related to student achievement, campus growth, and closing the gaps. As a result of these critical areas, a culmination of planning and reporting resulted in the board's vote to close Reagan and Bowie beginning the fall of 2027. In December, the San Angelo ISD leadership team, we refer to as the cabinet, discussed the past few years and the plans earlier to close Reagan and Bowie, and we also discussed other elementary campuses in preparation for the January 26 meeting. An internal exercise was performed by the cabinet team to be sure we were in agreement with any recommendations to the Board of Trustees. The worksheet we used independently allowed each member to score the campuses in a number of ways, and each member submitted their average score for each campus to a member of our cabinet team who compiled the averages and confirmed we were in agreement in the event we were asked by the board which campuses we would recommend for closure. The worksheets were really never intended to do any more than confirm what the professional engineers and architects had already recommended to us in previous years and presentations. The Board of Trustees heard the reports over the past 40 months and made a determination to close Reagan and Bowie for the fall of 2027. And at that January meeting, there were some questions about the actual worksheet that we used. For instance, can we see all of the worksheets? And my answer is to the board, I didn't have those worksheets. The averages were forwarded to a member of our team who compiled it. So after the board meeting, I went back and asked each member to provide their independent scoring sheets, and then we forwarded those to you all. But that's not something that we really intended to be the deciding point for this decision the board had to make. And then there was a question about what was the reason one of our cabinet team members, or why that member did not participate. We had one member that hadn't been on all the campuses, and that member felt disqualified to answer and score the campuses, and so therefore we just said don't participate. So I think there were some questions around why we used that. We really didn't have to participate in that activity. That was really just an internal, if you want to say, a gut check before we got to the January meeting, so that we could look the board in the eye and say, look, over the past 40 months, you've heard reports from engineers prior to my coming and architects about the campuses that were either aging or were just an inappropriate footprint for an elementary campus. And so this was our final check within to be sure that we could look you in the eye as a board and say, we agree, even though we're not the professional engineer and architects that made that recommendation. And so there was a question about that. So tonight, I'm making those comments to help answer any questions and help the board understand why we use that.
Any board questions or comments?
Yes, I'll begin. On my way here, I really had to pray for discernment for myself and for my colleagues here. This was brought back on the agenda at my recommendation and a second by Mr. Gerard Gallegos, whose school, Reagan Elementary, would be impacted. At that board meeting, I had several questions that went unanswered. One of them being the slideshow that was repeatedly shown to us for several meetings in a row. I really wanted to know how we got those numbers. Where are they coming from? The answers that we received were kind of just, in between answers. I was not fully satisfied with what we're getting, and I wasn't comfortable with making the decision of closing, these two schools, Reagan Elementary and Bowie Elementary. Even after the vote happened, I still pursued. How did we come to those final numbers? Well, as our superintendent just explained, partially, those numbers were decided from direct employees right below him. Now, I understand that he says that, it wasn't meant to be an end-all final answer for us, but nonetheless, it's still a part of the puzzle, and you can't have a complete puzzle without all pieces there. This was a piece that was given to myself, and I didn't have the answer, so I did not feel comfortable making the vote. Now I have a little bit more. So, those factors when considering campus closures were given to us, but they were given to us as drafts. I knew that these were just compiled and they were typed in and sent to us. There's no names on them. There's no dates on them. There's nothing showing me or the rest of the board that these are legitimate. So that last meeting, several people told me to trust the process. Okay, let me trust it. So I'm looking at, there's 8 cabinet members, our superintendent is included. I still don't know, and he also participated in this exercise. I still don't know which one is his. Surely he would at least offer that much information for us, but we still don't know. There's nothing on these. So after our sit down, I realized that, the cabinet members that work directly under him were promised that their information or their scores would be kept confidential, which I don't agree with that either, because we're dealing with public schools, we're dealing with kids, we're dealing with changing lives. Why would we keep that confidential? But that's okay. Let's move on from that. I have 7 score sheets here. I don't know who they're from, but I'm hoping it's from the cabinet members that work directly under our superintendent. One of the cabinet members, like he stated, did not vote because he didn't feel comfortable grading the schools. But neither did 2 of the other cabinet members. One of them, there's 8 categories here that we're looking at, and they span from expandability of the campus, age of the facility, to spatial adequacy. 8 different categories. That was another one of my questions. Where did we get these 8 categories from? But I'll cover that in a little while. So not only did the one cabinet member not even participate in this at all, but 2 other members didn't fully participate either. One member completely left out educational adequacy on all elementary schools. A second member left out scoring 3 categories. There's nothing on those 3 categories whatsoever. So for those 2 cabinet members, the average score was just, instead of, averaging it out through 8 categories, it was either 7 or 5. But I did not know that Dr. Moran didn't ever have these in his hands. He just received the averages and passed them along to us to look at each meeting. And now I understand why, when I was asking for that information, it wasn't given to me, because, he didn't have it either. But the last meeting we had in private between me, Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and Mr. Gallegos, he said, like he stated here, it wasn't meant to be, the final call on these schools. So at our last meeting when we voted, all I could go off of was the information that I had was from 2022, 2023. And there, the professionals or Park Hill never once stated that Reagan should be closed. In fact, they recommended that Reagan was a great candidate for expandability. So that's all I could go off of at that time. Now, knowing that there was another report done in 2024, which I was not here for, but I got that information. Dr. Moran provided that for me. And where did we put it? It's only 2 pages. 2 pages of that report. And on that report, there's 3 metric ratings. One of them is a facility condition index, and Reagan is rated as excellent/good. The second one was facility condition needs index. Reagan is rated as good. The third one is modified recapitalization metric. There, Reagan is rated as replacement needed. I can only assume that, now there's different categories here, and I know not everybody can see this, that metric is classified as replacement needed because of the 20 to 30 year down the line visual. But if we look at 2 years down the line and 5 years down the line, we're in great standing for Reagan Elementary. So to me, that's a very unusual combination to have a facility condition index as excellent but then the recapitalization as replacement needed. So like I said, I'm going off of two sheets here that Park Hill revisited Reagan in 2024. I looked at, like I said, they're rating Reagan as excellent. My colleagues here, some have told me, you know, but the basement, the foundation of Reagan is bad. Nowhere in the facility reports from 2022 or 2024 does it state that the foundation is bad. What it does state is, where are we at here? Thank you all for giving me the time to speak. It says here, first floor framing members were observed in addition to previous repair attempts. While the flooring members can adequately support code required loads, floor deflections are excessive and do not meet serviceability guidelines. That serviceability does not mean safety. That just means like there's areas that the floor is a little bouncy. Here and there you're gonna hear, you know, squeaking. The school was built in 1909. Our last meeting, you know, Dr. Moran chalked it up to being old. But just because something's old doesn't mean you get rid of it. It's in good condition and it's taking care of families that really need a school in that area. So back to the factors of considering school closures that was presented to us, that we didn't have the full information, now we do. And if we're gonna use data, at least we need to be going off of good data. This is bad data that was presented to us, that was not directly in the hands of our superintendent where he could evaluate it, but it was presented to us so that we can see it and take it into consideration. None of us knew that it was inadequate, that it wasn't filled out in its entirety. I look at member 1 to member 2, somebody is rating Reagan's expandability as 10 being the best, and the next person's rating Reagan's expandability as 1 being the worst. There's a really big gap and these are opinions, but we went off of it. We took into consideration what was given to us, and that was bad data. So, let's see here. I'm going to read a little bit of my notes here that I made. I have more notes than the Park Hill recommendation for 2024. Some of my notes include that these numbers raise concerns and legitimate questions because normally when buildings truly need replacement, you see something to the effect of the FIC number being above 0.3, and it states major structural failures, safety or code compliance issues. The FCI that Reagan has been scored is very strong for a school building. If the building is currently rated excellent, what specific conditions justify the replacement rather than long-term capital improvement plans? Facility studies tend to focus heavily on building costs, but we as a district should also weigh community impact. The closure of San Jacinto and now Reagan creates an education desert. Districts should map distance between elementary campuses, which I presented all of this last meeting because I didn't know what to go off of. Districts should map distance between elementary campuses, walkability, bus ride times, neighborhood density. 2 nearby schools closing, entire parts of our city have lost access to a campus. And we also, years back, closed the neighboring junior high also. So we closed San Jacinto. Those students were moved into Reagan Elementary. Now those same students are gonna be faced with a second closure back to back. Now you take away that gap from the district map and you took away freshman campus, middle school, there's a big hole there. That is a legitimate planning concern of mine. If a district closes multiple schools in one area, you're looking at longer transportation routes, bus routes get longer, transportation costs rise, students spend more time commuting. Elementary schools are designed to serve neighborhoods and families, and without one, we will lose the ability to walk or bike to school for kids, participate easily in after-school activities or tutoring, and engage with campus community. We will also be experiencing more enrollment shifts like we presented today. Families have already responded by transferring to charter schools, moving students to other districts, choosing homeschool or private schools, and it's just going to accelerate enrollment decline. Reagan's large site is valuable and was highlighted, like I said, in our 2022-2023 sustainability plan as a great candidate for expansion. The district has not provided us with a map service radius for elementaries. Instead, we are rezoning with the help of our case committee and addressing these concerns after the fact, after the school closure vote, which concerns me as well as a parent and as a school board member. Asking for this analysis in advance and presenting it publicly is reasonable. A board should provide, a district should provide the board an equity review to ensure our decisions are transparent, data-driven, fair across neighborhoods. I've learned since my time on the board that I have to come with data and leave my emotions at the door, but that's part of who I am also, so the emotion will stay there as well. But I feel like I come with data every single time we talk about school closures. Like I said previously, this is the second school closure for the same attending students. That should raise concerns for the district also. We have several elementary campuses that are very close together, ranging from 1 mile apart to 1.5 miles. It's no wonder why we have such a great imbalance on our district map. Enrollment factors are being influenced by other factors. We talk about demographics a lot and birth rates. Many north side neighborhoods have larger households, higher birth rates compared to wealthier areas. That's just the truth. It's not an aging neighborhood. That term to me is misleading. I ask the board to please consider our students, their stability academically and emotionally. 2 closures in a short time should raise concerns for all of us in the same neighborhood. My goal is not to oppose change, but to ensure that our decisions are based on a full review of data and that it considers the needs of every single student across all of our districts, their families alike. I'm also requesting that the administration present 2 or 3 alternative consolidation scenarios for the board to review also. A declining enrollment today could stabilize in the next 5 to 10 years. Land value and expansion potential at Reagan Elementary would be hard to justify. There's not a lot of schools around San Angelo that have land like the Northside schools do. The other day I was driving through, passing McGill, is that Sherwood Way? Sherwood Way during lunchtime, packed, crammed, and the kids laying right against that security fence. Neighborhood schools are not a thing of the past. They're essential. And they're essential to parents who still have kids in elementary. When districts close schools, they often unintentionally remove campuses from lower income neighborhoods because those schools tend to have smaller enrollment, older buildings, and fewer renovations. I really recommend San Angelo ISD conducts an equity review. We have not done that, and that should have been done prior to us voting on closing another low-income minority school. For elementary schools, the recommendation is at least 10 acres. That the school serves a 1 to 2 mile service area radius, It's a safe walking zone. When two schools in the same part of town close, that radius can stretch up to 5 miles, which changes how families access schools, obviously. We really need to examine and prepare reports to include distance to the nearest elementary school, walkability for young students, transportation time on buses for the kids, and neighborhood population density. An equity review looks at certain things like the district comparing student demographics affected by the closure compared with the district as a whole. If one group is significantly more affected, that raises equity concerns. Geographic access, that's examining how far students will travel after a closure to include if students will lose walkable neighborhood schools. Will bus time increase? Will transportation costs rise for the district? And academic impact. We're comparing class sizes, teacher experience in the classrooms, program availability for the schools, and we need to confirm that students are being reassigned to equal or stronger schools. Surrounding campuses that we will be left with by taking away San Jacinto and Reagan do not fit that necessity. Community impact. How dependent are nearby families dependent on the campus for services? And does the school anchor the neighborhood? This is extremely important, especially in the low-income neighborhoods. Transportation and safety. Bus ride links, traffic safety. Will students be crossing major roads? I'm afraid that what was proposed and agreed upon disproportionately affects economically disadvantaged students compared with the district average. Community engagement can reveal concerns that the board may not have heard yet. Given the impact of recent school closures in the same area, I believe it would be helpful to gather community input as well as an equity review before making these decisions or the decision that was made prior. Just like you said earlier, it's good to get, certain people are boots on the ground. We haven't talked to, teachers. I asked for a town hall meeting before making this decision. We talk about morale in a school, and my kids do attend Reagan, and those teachers are upset. The morale is down. They know how much that school means to the kids and the effect that will be had by closing Reagan. Today, I just need one colleague to soak in what I just said, please, and back me up. I'm looking for an equity review. I'm looking for different factors that were not provided to us ahead of time. I'm making a motion that we postpone action on the close of Reagan Elementary until the board has received an equity impact analysis and full and clear answers to questions that we have not received answers to. I need one colleague to back me up with a second till we review everything that I'm requesting, and from there we can really be complete with voting and knowing that we looked at everything and we're still making the right decision. Thank you for listening to me.
Any further board comments or discussion?
I mean, I think we all hear what you're saying, Mrs. Cardenas, but I mean, there are other viewpoints here. Like, I don't think it's fair to pick out first of all, there's a lot there. So I'm trying to go through it and discuss some of the points that you pointed out. As far as the rubric, me personally, I think that if you're going to ask for a fair and honest review from your cabinet team, you would want it to be confidential. I think that's important, because if it wasn't, then you run the risk that you're asking your people that are your subordinates to basically provide you information that you could potentially lead them into. Is that, you hear what I'm saying there? So I think confidentiality is important. I didn't have any issue with the rubric at all. I looked at the individual scorecards. If anything, it does back up the fact that not all 7 were in agreement that Reagan was the #2 school. So this goes back to your point that these are not always straightforward, easy decisions. That of the rubrics, there were maybe 1 or 2 that it wasn't second. And some it was first, Reagan was first, but some it wasn't second. So to your point, like, it wasn't 100% consensus that was the second school, and I think that's a fair and honest way to do it. But the averages, the numbers speak for themselves that it was the second option as far as the rubric goes. That is a very minute piece, or for me, it was a very minute piece of the decision-making process. As you know, we talked to a lot of people. We've visited a lot of these campuses. We have talked to, like I said, teachers, parents, and admin team about these over the last several years. And we see the financial stuff, we see the loss in enrollment. So there's no like straightforward answer here. And I know that some of the points that you're making was, they didn't do this or that. And going back to the rubric, I was impressed that Dr. Moran and the team went to the efforts they did. They didn't always do that in the past. But when I first started, I wasn't on the board at the time, but when y'all were talking about closing San Jacinto and the other 2 schools that we did close, I don't remember a rubric like that being done. So I commend them for trying to get as much data as possible, but I'm not sure, to be honest, if there's any amount of data that you will get that would ever get you to agree with closing Reagan. I don't think that data exists, personally. I mean, I think that.
Well, you can't be sure unless we get it in front of us.
I think we've gotten a lot of data in front of us.
Let me ask you then, what was your determining factor?
That's a loaded question. There are literally years of stuff that goes into the one slide on a slideshow does not.
No. I picked up 3 notebooks this big, and out of those notebooks, 2 pages belong to Reagan.
Yeah.
And I have them right here.
Yeah. Well, one of the pages. Do you mind if I?
No, I don't mind.
Look at. One of the biggest reasons for me was the long-term viability of the campus. I mean, so you're talking this report that you're referencing is saying that if we want to stay in there past 2030, that we need to invest $12 million in this campus. That's a lot of money that we don't have.
But do you know what it's saying to invest in? Cracks in the wall. It's saying to invest in doors and handles that need to be replaced.
Okay, so but what you're just
it's saying to invest in repavement.
Right, but
repaving the parking lot.
You're using this as a source to back your case up.
What else?
And then
am I supposed to? I'm coming with data.
Right, and then you're refuting the other part of it. So you're using this to say why Reagan should not be closed, and then the part of the data that I'm saying of why I would want to close it, you're saying that's not valid in this document.
No, I'm not saying that at all. But the other schools that were provided, that were also looked at, they're all kind of similar to Reagan. Matter of fact, some of them don't even have a excellent rate facility condition index. Several of the other elementary schools are not rated excellent or good, but Reagan is.
Where does it say excellent or good?
Right here, facility condition index. This is Reagan Elementary, excellent or good.
It's not posted for action, and this is a meeting of the board. Thank you.
Is this not just saying the metric ratings?
For this particular school. So this was provided for about 5 or 6 other elementary. I was told that you all have this already.
We have. It just
okay.
It's not, obviously I haven't looked at it in a long time.
I know. So this is only for Reagan Elementary. So that's why I'm saying this is an unusual combination. So I can only assume that this here, the recapitalization, we're talking about in 20 plus years. Otherwise, Reagan currently and in the next few years is rated as excellent.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it's saying. I mean, I'll have to look at this. Obviously, I'm just now getting this to look at. But either way, it's also saying that we would need to put $13 million into it. So the same document, if this is true.
In the future.
Yeah,
And
in
it
the
talks
next
about,
4 years.
And it talks about right here what that investment would include. Cracks in the wall, little things like that, you know, that's anybody trying to.
Well, my point is, if you're going to take some of the information on here and say it's true, then you have to take all the information.
I am.
Okay, so
That's
you're
why I'm
saying
here.
that it would be $13 million.
That's what this report says.
Correct. Okay, and that's my issue, is long-term viability of Reagan, and this is obviously my opinion, I
Yes,
don't speak
that's
for the
okay.
board, that is not where
You want to invest, but
correct.
that is where me, being born and raised in San Angelo, seeing my kids are in that neighborhood, my kids are in that school, my kids were at San Jacinto, I know what campus closure, how it affects families, students, all the way across. I know what truancies, and I know what late happens to his parents, and I know that this will continue, and I know that you get court ordered, and all that will continue to be happening. I'm willing,
that's a
as
lot
a
of
board member.
assumptions.
No, it's not assumptions. Those are real things. Those are things that I've experienced, and because I can experience those things, it makes me a better advocate and a better school board member. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping these underserved schools. And that's why I'm willing to reinvest in Reagan. And maybe the next person isn't, but I come to these meetings and with an open heart and an open mind, because maybe what I'm thinking after I hear everybody's presentations and ideas will change. And I'm hoping that everyone is the same. But I am going off of real and true data. Look at all this, man. I do my research. And that's why I try to talk slowly and present data.
I will never say you're not passionate about this issue. I promise you that. You're very passionate about this. I just think so I guess, do you agree with closing 2 schools? Let's just start there.
Okay, look. I would never want any school to close, because I know firsthand how it feels. But like I asked you all last time, is that our only option? And you all have told me, that's it, that's the only option. So what am I supposed to say? You're telling me that that's it, this is it, okay. So give me the information that I'm asking for so that I can make a good, solid vote. And at that time, we didn't have any of this information in front of us. Now we do, and it's bad data.
I disagree. I think it's good data.
Does any other board member have comments?
I just want to say, everything that was said, like, first of all, this list right here, I did look at it, okay? I did look at it, circled the ones, and I did notice the pages and all that. But the thing is like, I didn't base my decision on this. I didn't base my decision. My decision was based back from 2008. You know, I've seen these schools, not just Reagan or San Jacinto, all of them, Bowie, you know, those schools were ignored in the 2008 bond, okay?
Not Reagan.
Well, Reagan got work done, and so did San Jacinto, okay. But like Bowie, okay, McGill, Altaloma, Austin, Fannin, they were all ignored. And so in 2014, we started that other study, okay, and which was going to build up to 2018 for us to pass that bond, which it didn't pass, okay. Then we had Park Hill come in, okay. But my decision is just based on the fact that I've been seeing this forever. And one thing that just really just, I don't know, it's just, I have all this stuff written down, but, you know, I made my decision, like I said, on the stuff that we had from 07, from 08, 2014. I've got all that stuff at home, all them notebooks there, and I was digging through them and all that. And it's just, you know, some of them say they have viability, some of them don't. But the one thing they did say they didn't have, especially the two oldest schools, was viability. I mean, 109 years old, 117 years old, and that's why I voted to say, you know what, our kids deserve better. Our kids deserve a better campus. And if it's going 1.5 miles from that center of Reagan just to Bradford, which is practically a new school.
There's no room at Bradford, and you can't.
But
you cannot send Ray into a lower performing school.
Let me finish, Ms. Cardenas, please. I gave you your.
It's a lower performing school.
We gave you your time, and please allow our time. But like I said, it's a 1.5 mile distance from the center of Reagan to Bradford. Okay, it's 3 miles from Goliad to Reagan. And really, to be honest with you, it's probably the other side of 19th where those kids are going to be going to Goliad. Depends on what the zoning ends up being. But you know, you talk about the swath there. We're equally having a swath here of no schools once they shut Bowie down, because Travis was closed. Bowie's now going to be closed. All you have over here is you've got Bonham, and you have Lamar, and then you've got McGill. So it's really almost the same as you'll have Holloman, and you'll have Bradford, and you'll have Goliad, all right in that area. So it's kind of like an outward thing, okay? But and when they do the zoning, I guess when they do the zoning, Dr. Moran and all that, I mean, you know, there are sorts of ways where you can, these kids are, especially like right there, Reagan, the only one I have issue is going to Holloman. That's a long ways, but I don't know how far that one, it says 3 miles. But, you know, like I said, when I made my decision to go ahead and vote, and before I voted no on a lot of these. On a lot of these I voted no. There were a lot of times where I voted no just by myself, or 2 voted no. But, you know, 20 years of trying to get something when I can just say, you know what, let's just move them right here. It's a newer school for them. It's better facilities, okay? It's something new, and they'll enjoy it. You know, it's just like when I wasn't even on the board when this happened, but when they shut Rio Vista down. You know, in 07, we had a bond that was going to combine Crockett and Rio Vista right here off Petrol Boulevard. 10 acres. We were going to buy 10 acres and combine both Crockett and Rio Vista. That failed. That failed because people said, no, we don't want to move from Reagan. I mean, we don't want to move from Rio Vista. You know, we didn't have the room to build a big campus like that at Rio Vista. And we were willing to shut down Crockett. Okay, because you know how big, that's not a lot of property back there. It's right there just along the rest of it is the cities. Okay, so, you know, we had the opportunity to do it then in 07, and people voted it down. It's just constantly people voting down. I said, you know what?
You just went with it.
You know what? More or less, no. I just, like I said, I've got from 07 all the way to now. Well, to several. But what I'm saying is that I didn't base my decision on this one piece of paper. This was a gut check for his people going, okay, can we present honestly a recommendation to the board? And that's how they felt. Okay, this is the final step we're going to come up with. We have the recommendation, but I want to see how you really feel one last time. And he did a gut check. Let's go ahead and do this. And, you know, that's what he gave us. But my decision was made a long time ago. You know, it was just enough's enough. I want to get this done. We passed the bond, and they didn't want to spend $45 million. Even the bond committee back then, you were on that bond committee. And,
yes, I sure was.
Yeah, but I'm not saying it was your recommendation.
It was but the district's recommendation.
Anyway, like I'm saying,
we can keep going in circles. All it is.
What I'm saying is, you know, we have a chance to spend $45 million on resizing schools or $45 million on one school.
And at whose expense?
And that's a lot of money.
And at whose expense?
It's making it better for them, I feel. So that's how I see it. You know,
it's okay, man. As long as everybody
Well, I
can
mean,
go to
like,
sleep at
you know,
night and feel good
and
about
that's
it.
how I feel.
presented what was true
And I
factual.
appreciate what you.
No, and I appreciate you
no, I
too.
appreciate what you-
This wouldn't have happened.
Because what I feel is that any board member should be able to express what they feel on this. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with any of your presentation. It was a great presentation. But it's like, so thank you for everything that you did. I really do appreciate that. But like I said, I had made up my mind already. And that, my mind, it's our job to vote. And I cast my vote a while back, and
Well, you seconded me for this
Yes, I
conversation
did.
to happen, so
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah,
Or
yes, I
otherwise,
did.
it wouldn't have happened again.
Yeah,
And
and that's-
and I know how Dr. Moran felt about you seconding me, and now you're coming with a different tone. But that's okay. That's okay. What I stand by is I'm a woman of my word.
Yes.
And if I say something, I follow through with it.
And that's
Other
good.
people have contacted me and told me certain things. If I present this idea or that idea, I'll back you up. And it's obvious here that nobody has backed me up. But I will stick to who I am. I will make sure that I continue to be the best advocate that I can for people who depend on me. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And that's who I am.
Any other board comments?
And just to clarify, the district never, like I said 5 or 6 times, provided us an equity review before we voted, and everybody here is okay making that vote.
Any further board comments or questions?
Dr. King, I'm not sure that as we continue to try to cast some cloud of inconsistency or lack of trust on the administration on this board and their decisions in the past, I'm not sure that's really a healthy environment. I appreciate the information I've got from the 4 years of the past procedures that we've gone through, the bond commission report, all of that. I think as we continue to linger in this point, we only keep this board from moving forward in the process of putting kids in a better place long term. Any type of closure will always provide some sort of disruption for a period of time. But as these kids move, they're flexible, and again, as they get into their new places, I don't think the building really matters as much as it does the people that are there.
Mr. Dindal, let me just clarify, please. I'm not raising these concerns to shine a negative light on the district. I'm glad to be a small part of this, but it's my job and it's my duty to make sure that I'm voting with everything necessary. And I felt that I didn't have it because we did not have it, and that's what I'm presenting. It nothing more than that. It's okay. You all listen to me, and
I appreciate your
and we're going to
presentation,
move
for
on.
sure, yeah.
And we're going to move on.
Any other comments or questions? And just, Ms. Cardenas, just for, I'm not going to keep beleaguering points, but as far as the motions and rules, if you have a second board member, I'm happy to get it as an action item on the agenda for you. We cannot do that as part of a discussion item this evening. Does that make, so I don't want you to think I ignored you in that.
No. I just went off of your recommendation when we met together. I had a second, and you told me to discuss it first.
For the discussion.
And then make a motion, and if I had a second there, then we put it as an action item. Otherwise, I don't know how to, I'm just learning how to do all this.
And I apologize if I misled you in how I try, that's not exactly what I meant to say, maybe what I said.
It's okay.
But what if, absolutely, if 2 board members ever want a discussion item or an action item, we can always make that happen. We will always make that happen. But the way to do that legally is to post it as an action item and to do it that way. So,
Okay, got it.
just so you, I just don't
Yes.
want you to think I'm ignoring you.
I don't think so. Thank you.
But thank you for your presentation. Any other board comments or questions? All right. We're going to move forward then with our action item for this evening, which is consider library book purchases. And Dr. Gomez.
Dr. Kingman, this is from the January order, and the reason why it had to be put as an action item this evening is because to meet the 30-day requirement, when the February regular board meeting was moved, we didn't have the 30 days. So the 30 days has passed. We've received no parent or community feedback from the requested order. So we are asking, since we're now delayed 2 months, we are asking for approval on this order to be in compliance with Senate Bill 13.
So these are the books we all got in one of Dr. Gomez's wonderfully long emails in middle of January, late January. Anyone have any comments or questions regarding the approval of library books? Do I have a motion to approve the library books? I'll make a motion that the Board of Trustees approve the proposed list of new library book titles for inclusion in the SISD library collections for the 25-26 school year. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion for myself and a second from Dr. Mills. Any further board comments or questions? All in favor say aye and raise a hand. Motion passes 6-0. All right, we're going to review our proposed agenda for, it's actually almost 3 weeks from now. So between spring break and other things, we're just going. So we're going to have invocation pledges, recognitions of some central swimmers and students, recognition of cheerleaders in our district communication team, public comments. We'll have an information item. We'll have both KFW and Park Hill here likely for the next meeting. And I don't think we have anything tonight. Do you have anything for that tonight? Fantastic. Dr. Gomez will have an update on academic programs. I know you told me last meeting what that was going to be.
Yes, sir. This will be additional information from last month's MOY data update, and it will be specific to our campuses involved in school improvement. And then that will segue into the presentation from Dr. Self and Mr. Kallenbach. Dr. Self will be reporting on elementary, and Mr. Kallenbach will be reporting on secondary. So it's just kind of a natural segue as they work with our campuses directly.
Perfect. After that, we'll have donations as a consent items, our minutes as a consent item, and then the library book purchase, that's the books from the February email?
That's correct. And then we will get current, hopefully.
Okay. And then just wanted to make sure I was right on which email I was approved. We as a board were approving. And then as far as bid 25-015, Mr. Henry.
Are we going down the list?
This is for the consent item number 4. It's just an adder. It appears
Oh, I'm
to me.
sorry. Yes, sir. That is an adder for the miscellaneous supply bid.
Okay. So we'll leave that as consent, and then we're going to go through some action items. And Mr. Henry, why don't we go through a few of them? You have, it looks like 6 of them in a row, and we'll go ahead and just talk about each one of them. And board, as we're looking through these, let's see if any of these are consent or regular and go from there.
All right, the first one is our district-wide roofing bid, RFP 26-006. During a 2020 hailstorm, a large portion of our district was impacted with roof damage, and all emergency repairs were completed, and this bid will complete the remaining work at 9 campuses. Specifications were created by our insurance adjuster for the covered areas. This includes multiple roofing materials, painting, and light HVAC work. Bids were received from 6 vendors capable of performing this type of work. The administration recommends approval of Jet Construction for the repair of roofs at 9 campuses for the total cost of $1.5 million. Do you all have any questions over this?
So this will complete our insurance claim regarding
From 2020.
From 2020.
Correct.
We had a storm right the following year, didn't we? It was like 2 in a row, where we all got everything that needed.
Mr. Henry, have we used Jet before?
We have not used Jet before. Dr. Brandon and I met with the owner last week to kind of feel him out. We checked his references. Everything seems to be good. They're a larger company, do a little bit of GC work, but also have a roofing arm to them.
Okay, confident in that decision?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
What are we replacing the roof with? What type of roofing is this?
It's going to be different roofing at different campuses. Some of it's going to be shingle, some of it will be built up, some of it will be TPO. There's a little bit of metal roofing in there, so it's pretty much every type of trade you can think of.
And all of these companies here are experts at all the different type of roofs that you just
Yes.
mentioned? I'm very concerned with seeing that there's 2 local companies here that we can easily talk to or, reach out to if there's a problem, an issue, compared to, someone from Cheeto, Texas, which I've never even heard of that place, but I think it's worth looking at somebody local compared to somebody out. A roof is, if you don't have a good roof, you don't have anything. Everything will be ruined. So that's very important, and if we spend a little bit more by contracting someone local, I think that's worth considering.
Jet Construction's response time was 3 hours when we asked them. They said they could be here within 3 hours of any call that we made to them, which exceeds our 24-hour request.
And if I can jump in, I think there's a typo there. That should be Chico,
Yes,
Texas.
Chico.
Yeah, we got a chuckle out of that as well. It's not Cheeto, it is Chico.
Yes.
And that is west of Decatur.
I tried to find Cheeto, Texas.
Yeah, you're not going to find Cheeto, Texas, but Chico. Sorry about that.
Have we used them before?
No, we have not.
Do we have references?
Yes, we checked their references, and Merle and I met with the owner of the company as well. Got a good feel for them.
Have we used any of the other companies listed here?
Yes, we have. We have used, actually, the only other 2 that we've used is going to be Ramos and Harrison.
It's worth mentioning that those are 2 local roofing companies that specialize in all the roofs that you just mentioned, correct?
Yes, they do all the roof.
Okay.
All bidders bid everything as presented.
So we'll obviously keep that as regular, and then we can, the motion, so we can make a motion to, in Ms. Cardenas, it could be, we don't have to use the low bid. We can use and we've done that previously. The admin usually recommends the low bid because that's, yes. And I don't know what how our insurance falls on that. Maybe Dr. Brandon, our Friday facts, could you let us know if what the impact to our budget would be if we chose to use a local vendor instead of the low bid, what that would do with our insurance coverage and what the coverage of that?
We'd be responsible
Or
for the difference.
we'd be responsible for the difference, or how that works. All right, so we'll keep that as a regular. RFQ 2026-35, the Bonham Playground.
During the 25-26 school year, the Bonham students, parents, and staff have had a very successful fundraising campaign. The PTO, who sponsored the fundraiser, partnered with the district to purchase playground equipment. This playground equipment will accommodate between 70 and 80 kids, has multiple play areas, and includes slides, climbers, and material for the functioning playground. Right now, we have two bids where I'm waiting to meet with one more buy board vendor tomorrow, and then I should have the third one, and we'll send all pricing in after that is completed. So we'll have a recommendation for you next board meeting.
Perfect. And let's keep that as a regular for a shout out to the Bond and PTO for.
And Jason, you'll get that off of our vendor list, or you'll
Yes.
look for someone on there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Another one that's not ready for prime time yet. You want to tell us what we're doing? And
This
it'll
one
stay
is
regular.
this one is our athletics fields projects. This includes turf replacement, additional turf, lighting, fencing, and tennis courts, both refinishing and adding tennis courts. This one's out for bid and will open on Monday, the 23rd. As soon as it is opened, we'll tabulate it and we'll have a recommendation to you at the board meeting.
And are they able to bid it just for board's sake? Are they able to build it as separate pieces, or is it all one piece? Because obviously we had multiple fields across the campus for the bond project.
We bid it as line items that they could bid on every single line item, and then at the bottom we have a discount for an all or none bid that they would take off for the total cost.
Okay.
So they'll be making bids on turf replacements, additional turf, lighting, fencing, and tennis courts.
Correct.
They're gonna be doing all that.
So potentially you could recommend a split bid or a all-in-one bid
Correct.
in our Friday facts. Okay. Just so I know what we're looking for. So when we're all looking at that, since it will be coming to us in Friday facts instead of just we just need to make sure we.
Say we leave it on regular.
Yeah,
Dr.
for sure,
King,
regular,
Because
since-
it's part of the bond project, and so we can show the projects that we're completing or bidding out and how much they cost.
Okay. Then the CMAR bond 2025 Fannin, that's the construction manager at risk. We approved for us to move to a construction manager at risk, but we will not have those bids back yet until Friday facts as well.
Thursday the 12th they will open, and then we'll get you a Friday fact.
Okay. So, and that's important that we go ahead, and I know some of these seem quick but this one's important. So for Fannin to be ready, we need to make sure that waiting for another meeting doesn't get there. So that's why that's going to go ahead and be on the next meeting. All right. So let's go to trades 25-023.
Various departments in the school district need professional trade services at times throughout the year. This bid is to establish a pool of pre-approved vendors for various trades to be used on an as-needed basis throughout the school year. Bids were prepared for a variety of trades and sent to over 200 vendors. 73 vendors responded in 52 different categories for this bid. The following bid tab lists the vendors and the categories. The vendors will be used to secure quotes for projects that arise during the year. This contract period runs from April 1st, 2026 to March 31st, 2027, with an opportunity to renew for 2 additional one-year extensions. The administration recommends approval of the vendors listed on the following bid tab.
Ms. Chandry, is 73 about a normal response on this
Yeah,
bid?
that's
Seems like it's about
average.
right
Mhm.
on this one.
Everyone okay with that being? Everyone, we do that one every year. Is everyone okay with that being consent? If someone sees something on when they're going through the 73 that needs for it to come off of consent because of either conflict or anything else, let me know and we'll pull it back to regular. But otherwise, we'll make that a consent. All right, fine art instruments.
This
Another
one we are
that's-
still working on. We're going to hold on to this one.
Dr. Kingman, after we've kind of put together the numbers and presented those this evening on the budget, we would like to hold on that. That was an additional purchase from capital outlay. It's approximately $300,000. So we'd rather hold, see what our student population looks like, see where the movement is, where students land, and then talk to the fine arts department to see if we can't allocate instruments rather than purchase and not knowing what our student counts will be. So at the moment, we'd like to hold on that.
All right, so that one will be pulled from the agenda, which means we're pulling that one. Ms. Doyle is up with the E-grant application for the funding year of 26-27.
Good evening, everyone. So I will be in similar boat as Jason.
Ms. Doyle, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Can you give because this is the first time some board, can you give us an explanation of what the E-rate, because I know you're not quite ready for all that.
I'll be glad to.
Can you give us a little
history
of what the E-rate is, just for everyone on the board, please?
I'll be glad to do so. So each of us probably has some kind of telephone bill, whether that's a house phone or a cell phone bill. And on that bill, you see it'll either say Universal Service Fund, or it'll say, oh crud, I just forgot what the other line item is that they call it. But there is a line item on everyone's telecom bill that is a small tax that each of us pay per line per month, and that goes into the Universal Service Fund at the federal government. It is managed by the FCC, and the sub-organization under that is the USAC organization. And that funding is intended to help school districts with their telecommunications expenses, meaning our internet, our wide area network. And what our wide area network is the connections from our technology center to each of our campuses and departments. And so in most of our locations, we have a lease line fiber connection from technology center to that site. There's a few small sites that we do an internal wireless connection, but for a majority of our sites, they are a lease line fiber. And then we also have our district internet connection that comes to our technology center. And then we have a few cable modem connections that we use in the district in some small locations. And so this USAC, or USAC is the administrator and E-rate is the grant. And it funds discounts on all of any school district, public school district and charter school district who chooses to apply for the funding. And you can get anywhere from 10% to 90% discount on your bill. And it is based off of your free and reduced lunch numbers for the school district. And they have and if you're rural or urban. So there's a calculation chart in our case. The last several years, and including next year's application, we qualify at the 80% funding level. And so that means we pay 20% of the bill, the federal government pays 80% of our bill, and which is a huge help to our school district. And so in our telecom case, 2 years ago, we bid that out, and Optimum won the bid. Optimum has won our bid for a number of years for the WAN, wide area network. It's gone back and forth between Optimum and some other vendors in regards to the internet part. But currently, Optimum is our vendor for both. They've taken great care of us. I know you probably see online some people bashing Optimum. They've taken great care of San Angelo ISD. We have had to quickly move some lines over the last few years because of our construction projects, and they've been there side by side with us, helping us through that move and working with us to make those timelines to work around our school projects. They've worked nights, they've worked weekends. We are preparing to do a huge move at McGill during the spring break holiday. And that is moving our main fiber that is coming into the campus that supports that campus and connects them back to us. One of their technicians was on vacation this last week. He got on a call with us during his vacation to talk through some of that with us. He's prepping equipment for us to make the transition easier for us. They do a lot for us. And I have people's cell phone numbers if we have outages, and we very, very seldom have outages. Usually if there's an outage, it's because somebody cut a fiber line in town and did not follow the rules of call dig tests and let them mark the lines and don't dig where they're not supposed to dig. But they've been very responsive to us. So I feel comfortable that we are under a multi-year contract. So for this year's, the grant application I'm applying for is next school year. and that will be year 3 of that contract. We actually have 2, if I remember it correctly, 2 extensions that we can exercise on that contract should we choose to. So that's the priority level, first priority level of E-rate grant. The second part is for network upgrades. And it changed a few years ago, and it revolves on a 5-year funding cycle now. And they do a calculation based on your number of students. And this application will start our new 5-year window, our 5-year allocation. It'll be set based on what our student count is now. And if we increase in students, then they'll increase it. But if it goes down, we're still locked in where we are right now. And so part of that is we bid network upgrades every year. We split our network upgrades over a 5-year cycle. And so we do a portion each of the 5 years. And so that's what this bid is, and we will open that on Friday. And we already have several vendors who are interested and have sent in and told us they will be submitting a packet. So we'll open those bids Friday morning, score them, and then we'll get that over to Jessica, and so that y'all have that in your board packet for approval. And so at the next board meeting, you will approve both that bid award and for me to submit that grant application. And that application window closes April 1st for this part of the process.
So yeah, obviously, I know you're very good about keeping us on timelines for this, and I appreciate that, Ms. Doyle. But I just want to make sure everyone knew kind of what we were approving, and so we can keep, I guess since we don't have the information yet, we'll keep that as a
this will need to be an action item, please.
Action item, but
Yeah, Ms. Doyle, in terms of maybe the last 5 years, what are the real dollar savings that's come to the district? I mean, it's significant.
It's
10
significant.
million?
So, and I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I want to say over $10 million.
Right, over $10 million over the last
about
4 or 5 years, yeah.
Probably, well, maybe about the last 8 years. It's probably been about $10 million. But yeah,
significant funds to upgrade our wide area network, our internet capabilities, and
to pay for our telecom. Yes. Yeah. So it is definitely helped school district. It is the only grant that I know of that funds these type of resources in the school district. Other grants will fund end-user devices, like our iPads or Chromebooks, or software programs for our students, but they will not fund the infrastructure. This is the only one I know of that funds infrastructure.
Sure. Thanks for your efforts on that. It's a huge win for the district.
Sure. And I'll be glad to answer other questions if y'all think of them later. So, and I'll be back at the next one.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle.
Thank y'all.
Next, Dr. Gomez, what do you want to give us tonight on Senate Bill 13 compliance and update on book challenges?
See if I can balance these. There's really no way to explain without a little visual representation. So I'll refer to this as I go along. I know I also shared in Friday Facts, and I know it was very lengthy. And due to the amount of time complying with Senate Bill 13, the amount of time it's taking for our staff, and most importantly for the decisions made in educating our students, I want to talk through it. So the district has completed all required updates to EFB local in alignment with Senate Bill 13. That was one of the few bills that had to be done right at the beginning in the large 89th legislative session. During this school year, the 25-26 school year, before the stack you see right here, so through mid-February, the district received 71 book reconsiderations. Of the 71, they've all been submitted by 5 individuals. Also in Friday Facts, I shared with you the entire list for the 71. Anyone submitting a reconsideration request must use the required reconsideration form. So I know that you all have been copied on these as they've been submitted. So the first form as part of the process is the reconsideration form. And this form requires specific answers to questions. We didn't make these questions up. The Texas Education Agency submitted a form, but they submitted the form after the school year began. We already had a book reconsideration process and form. So once TA submitted theirs, we reviewed their form with our form, and we kept, because our form met all the requirements, because we had already begun the school year. Okay, I just want to provide that clarity. So there are two specific questions on here that are very important to note whenever a reconsideration form is submitted. One of the very important questions is, have you examined the entire selection? When we go through the process, we can't just take an excerpt of the book. We have to read the book in its entirety. So it goes on to clarify, meaning, have you read the entire book? Okay, and then the last question, how is this resource educationally unsuitable? We have to know the content itself that they want reconsidered. So of all 71 through mid-February, and then I'll get to these, every submission from the 5 individuals was submitted in the exact same way, which you have copies of, and I'm happy to share if you would like them again. When it said, had you examined the entire selection, the title of the book was selected or listed. That was the response. Then, on the question of how is this resource educationally unsuitable, the listing of Texas Bill Senate 13, 2025-2026, 89th legislative session. That's the response. So that's what the committee has to go from. Then all of the individuals submitting these, they have downloaded and attached a book report from booklooks.org. So since the state of the nation and the consideration of challenging and banning books, there's been a wide array of websites providing book ratings. Okay, we all know that you can find lots of different information out on the web. We also know that in schools, we are required to meet library standards and teach the Texas Essential Knowledge of Skills. Okay, so all of that, just giving you some background. It's also a regular part of our library services, and all of this is found on our library services webpage, that we weed our collections, okay? So weeding, in this sense, you can consider it a deselection, a process of evaluating and sometimes withdrawing material that are rarely used, contain inaccurate or dated information, so you look at the copyright of the material, are in poor physical condition, so if they're damaged, or are no longer relevant to curriculum or student or faculty needs. This process does occur regularly, and it's neither dependent on nor triggered by a book reconsideration. So I want to go back to the book ratings themselves. According to the Comprehensive Content-Based Rating Scale, version 2.0, published by the Pavement Education Project, in partnership with ratedbooks.org, a score of 3 designates the age guidance youth restricted. What this means is individuals under 18 require the guidance of a parent or guardian. The intent of Senate Bill 13 was to make parents the primary decision makers for their children. San Angelo ISD has recognized parents as the primary decision makers regarding their child's access to library materials by providing parents access to the district's library catalogs and establishing a process for parents to identify specific titles their child may not check out or access outside the school library, and even offering parents the option to receive notifications each time their child checks out or uses a library material outside the school library, including the title, author, genre, and return date. So as a result, every San Angelo ISD parent has the authority to restrict access to individual titles for their own child. When a parent has not placed such a restriction, the student may access the material as part of the district's library collection. To date, with the individuals submitting these book reconsiderations, the district does not have a book with a rating of a 5 in its library circulation. The 4s that have been removed as part of the weeding process were removed due to the following instances: age, so again, an older copyright date, lack of circulation, or condition of the book. I know you all have seen just regular student backpacks, but think of it in terms of library and all of these instructional materials. So the binding's broken, it's dirty, they spilt a drink or some unknown liquid on the book. Those were removed just as part of their regular weeding process. We've also, through this process, our librarians and our librarian staff, they've spent a large amount of time on this process, and they found that either the books were taken and not checked out. That can happen. You try really hard, but when you have a lot of students in the library, it can happen. Or they were never returned. So our librarians and our librarian staff this year, which is Senate Bill 13, you've already approved one of those requirements this evening on the required book orders. They have to be a month in advance. So they're either working on book list or they're working on reconsideration forms. In book list alone, through this time of the year, they've spent over 160 hours complying with Senate Bill 13 just for book list. I think it's very important that the board knows we have had no parent or no community member provide any feedback on the library material form we have posted since the beginning of the school year to be in compliance. We've received no feedback. But we've delayed every order, delaying instructional materials in our libraries and in essence in the hands of our children by up to 30 days. In the event of January, it'll be over 30 days to meet the requirement of this bill. For book reconsiderations, we are now over 100 hours for staff. This stack right here are submitted by one individual. It's 141 titles, all rated a level 3 since the last week of February. So there are real strong opinions in regards to the amount of time and what a few individuals are proposing and the repercussions it can potentially bring to the students sitting in our classrooms.
Ms. Gomez, I was looking at that, that list, that pile you got over there. Those are the ones that we just received, correct?
These are the ones that were received since the last week of February and through last week.
Okay. You know, I'm looking at this one right here, and I've looked at several of them where it says, have you examined the entire selection? Meaning, have you read the entire book? If not, what? Okay? The person that submitted this on Unravel Me, for example, that's what he put, Unravel Me.
That's the title of the book.
Exactly. He didn't even read anything.
Out of the 71 and the 141, they've all been that way.
Let me finish. If they're incomplete like this, do we have to accept them? Because that's an incomplete answer as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've read several of them. They just have the title on there.
So I think it's really important that I'm allowed to go ahead and give the rest of the information, and then the board can make the decision on whether or not you have to accept them. I just have to show you what is being presented to our staff and in our offices in regards to Senate Bill 13. But ultimately, that's a board decision. So again, no parents have asked for email notification of what their child checks out in the libraries. No parent has asked for access to block book titles for their own child. No parent or community member have submitted information to the library materials feedback form for any of the 6 months we've been complying with Senate Bill 13. So what that means and where we are today and why I wanted to discuss this before asking you to take action in the regular meeting is if a book is in the San Angelo ISD curriculum, the recommendation to the board is that the book will remain in the library circulation. I have an item on the board agenda right after this where we have to annually certify that our materials protect children from obscene and harmful material. Again, with the intent of Senate Bill 13 being parents are the primary decision makers. So the recommendation for the regular board meeting is if the book is a part of the curriculum, the recommendation is that it remains. And here's further explanation. Already in San Angelo ISD, parents can request alternative reading assignments for any of our curriculum. We already provide that. So again, the parents are the primary decision makers. So this applies to, of the 71 books, it applies to the following titles. Brave New World. You heard a teacher speak on that title this evening. The Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Bluest Eye, and The Freedom Rider's Diary. Those 4 books, the recommendation is that they remain in the library circulation. 3 books are being recommended for formal challenge after this presentation. Red, White, and Royal Blue, Serpent and Dove, and Blood and Honey. Now, to do a formal review, it does take time. One of these titles, we only have one available copy, and you have to have multiple people read the book in its entirety and actually answer the question that Mr. Gallegos was referring to, not simply list the title of the book. So the recommendation is that we proceed with a full formal review with a reading content selection committee, and we come back to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees after that full process in the regular April meeting. Okay? So what that leaves is the 141 titles right here that are all rated a 3. The recommendation is that these books remain in the library circulation because the individuals who submitted these themselves are using a rating that says parental guidance for students under 18, which we fully adhere to, and no parent has submitted any information saying their child cannot read the book. If the board does not want to process the 141 that are level 3, the librarians and our educators feel so strongly, we will take all books through a formal challenge before we will just agree to strip our libraries of literature for our students. So that is what we're bringing forward to you all for consideration.
Can I ask just a few clarifications?
Yes, sir, please.
Right now, our parents, when they log on, can get, I just want to reiterate this, can get a notification of every book that is checked out. They can set parameters based on a scoring, not necessarily the scoring that is being used, but they can set restrictions on what books they want their kids to be. They can select titles they don't want their kids.
That is correct. They can select titles. They can't select criteria.
Correct.
They would submit the titles, yes.
They can select specific titles preemptively that would not allow their student to check that book out.
That is correct.
Okay. And then they can also get a notification of every book that their child checks out.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to clarify. And we've been doing that since we updated the library system years ago, like as far as the notification when...
It was new this year on parent notification that was in compliance with the bill. And so the vendors did work to meet that.
Okay. Well, I personally don't think we should do any form that isn't filled out correctly, 1, and 2. I think if the whole goal is, I believe that we've talked about other well-intended legislation that has unintended consequences. And I think for me personally, if we go too far down this road, all we're doing is restricting parents' rights as opposed to protecting parents' rights. And so I don't want anyone telling my kid they can't read Brave New World. And I don't want anyone telling my kid they can't read Fahrenheit 451. And so for me personally, I would tell you that that's my choice as a parent. And so, I mean, I'm open to other board comments and questions, but for me, I think that it's very simple that we should rely on our parents to decide what their children should read, not anywhere else, as long as we can do that within the constraint, being sure that we follow the constraints of the law as written is, obviously.
Mr. President, I've got a comment. First of all, I'd like to thank and recognize Ms. Hogue and her staff for the dedication. I know it's frustrating, but I want to thank you publicly for your devotion to reading, to books, and making sure kids love to read. Thank you for that. Also, would like to say publicly that Ms. McKillop and Ms. Sweats, specifically at Central, I have personal knowledge of this because my son has gone through their class. They have taught my son how to love literature, and they've read some of the titles you've mentioned. So I just want to say that I think there's safeguards in place, but our staff is doing a tremendous job, and they're teaching kids to love to read and challenging them to read things that they wouldn't normally read, and learn to see different viewpoints. So thank you.
Other board comments or questions before this becomes an action item with a recommendation next week?
I just have to add one more thing. So I also know Ms. McKillop, and I know Ms. Hogue and know the work that they do. But I think that for me, the most meaningful or most effective comment tonight was by the former student, Hunter Glass, and when he came and said that reading those books in class actually changed the way that he thinks. And, he specifically said that he was racist before, and that because he read To Kill a Mockingbird and understood it in school, along with his classmates, changed his way of thinking. And that's what books are for. And, if some of those books that were challenged might have a page or two of something that might, for some people, be inappropriate, for others might not. But in the context of the book, I don't think it's right to remove any book from a shelf because of a part of a book without reading the entire story.
So we'll keep that as regular. But we'll look forward to the recommendation from admin. Dr. Gomez, you next, when you put your pile down, you next have the certification of provision of instructional materials for the 26-27 year. Anything you want to tell us about that this evening?
This is the required annual certification that districts must submit to the State Board of Education and the Commissioner of Education. This requires districts to annually certify that students receive 100% of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for all required subjects except PE, that instructional materials protect children from obscene or harmful content, and that the instructional materials technology allotment, that those funds are being used appropriately. So what districts are required to do, they're required to complete the pre-work survey and then present that to the Board of Trustees for ratification in an open public meeting. And then once that is done, then that is uploaded through the system so that districts may then begin using their instructional material allotments for the following school year.
I think because of the nature of that needs to stay regular as well. So we'll keep that as regular. Dr. Moran, you will consider superintendent's recommendations of the 26-27 administrators contracts.
Right, and for the board's review, in March, we do administrator contracts. In April, we take teachers and those in that job family to you for consideration. And then from time to time, if we have a contract that we're either considering or working through with the employee, you might have a handful of them in May. So just expect that would be the annual cycle, but March is administrator contract month.
All right. Any questions regarding that? Yeah, is everyone okay with that being consent? Okay, consent it is. All right, we do need to go into executive session. Sorry. 551.074 personnel matters, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back from executive session. We took no votes or actions. Our next board meeting is a Thursday, March 26th. And with that, we are adjourned.